The International Criminal Court just did something unthinkable. They issued an arrest warrant for Donald Trump. Not a domestic indictment, not a state-level charge. The world's highest court, the tribunal that prosecutes genocide, war crimes, and crimes against humanity, just declared a former president of the United States an international fugitive. Before we break down this earthquake, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is developing by the hour, and what happens next could reshape the entire global order. You need to see every update as it drops. Let's dive in. This isn't like the other cases you've been following. The ICC in The Hague doesn't prosecute tax fraud or hush money payments. They go after the worst of the worst: dictators who commit genocide, warlords who use child soldiers, leaders who orchestrate crimes against humanity. And now they've added Donald Trump to that list. The warrant is shrouded in sealed filings and international legal secrecy. But the details leaking out paint a stunning picture. Alleged conspiracy spanning continents. Business dealings weaponized for geopolitical disruption. The Trump Organization framed not as a real estate empire, but as an instrument of international crime. For the first time, Trump's global business network isn't facing financial scrutiny. It's being prosecuted as a threat to international peace. The news didn't come through official channels. It started as whispers in European capitals, frantic calls between foreign ministers, emergency sessions convened in Downing Street, the Élysée Palace, and the West Wing. World leaders were given advance confidential notice. They knew before the public. They knew before Trump. And they had to decide, how do you respond when the world's highest court wants to arrest a former American president? Then it exploded onto the wire services. Cable news went into meltdown, and the Trump camp erupted in fury. Trump's initial statement was pure rage. Political hit job, globalist elites, deep state actors on an international scale. The bombast was loud. But sources close to him described something else: suppressed panic. Because this time, the battlefield isn't a New York courtroom where his lawyers can delay an appeal. This is a global stage where American political influence holds far less sway. The legal war just went exponential. So what exactly is he accused of? The ICC investigation, conducted in secret for years, centers on three explosive areas. First, destabilizing a fledgling democracy in the Balkans through covert real estate investments. Second, allegedly arming militia groups in conflict zones via a network of shell companies. Third, explicit public threats made against the sovereignty of an ICC member nation. Prosecutors have woven these together into a central thesis. Donald Trump used his private corporation and the lingering influence of his office to engage in systematic persecution and other inhumane acts, crimes against humanity. But here's where it gets truly unprecedented. The core of the case rests on a controversial argument that's never been tested at this level. Prosecutors claim Trump's relentless attacks on the ICC itself constitute a crime. His sanctions on ICC officials during his presidency, his alleged offers of financial incentives to witnesses in other ICC cases, his systematic attempts to undermine the court's legitimacy. They're arguing this isn't free speech or political policy. It's persecution against a protected group. In this case, international jurists and the global community seeking accountability for atrocities. It's an explosive legal theory, and if it holds, it changes everything. Here's what you need to understand. The United States is not a member of the ICC. For decades, Washington has viewed the court with deep suspicion, fearing politically motivated prosecutions of American soldiers and officials. The US has actively worked to undermine it. That animosity peaked under Trump, who authorized economic sanctions against ICC prosecutors investigating US actions in Afghanistan. Now, that very hostility is being used as evidence of criminal intent, a deliberate attempt to obstruct international justice. The hunter has become the hunted. Back in America, the reaction is instant and volcanic. Cable news has split into parallel universes. One side frames the warrant as the ultimate vindication of the rule of law, a long overdue reckoning. The other calls it an act of war against American sovereignty, a terrifying precedent where foreign judges can target US leaders. Congress has descended into chaos, Hearings are already scheduled. The Speaker of the House promises legislation to sanction the ICC into oblivion. Senate progressives are calling for cooperation with the investigation. The partisan lines have hardened into unbreakable concrete. This just transformed the 2024 presidential race. What was a domestic political contest is now a global referendum on America's place in the world. Trump's campaign is already weaponizing it. Fundraising emails decrying the globalist witch hunt, rally speeches portraying him as a martyr for national sovereignty, a new potent energy of defiance against a hostile world. His opponents face an impossible dilemma: embrace the warrant and risk alienating voters who see it as foreign interference, or dismiss it and appear weak on the rule of law. There is no good answer. Here's where things get truly dangerous. Germany, France, the UK, key NATO allies are all signatories to the Rome Statute that created the ICC. They have a legal obligation to cooperate with the court. That means if Donald Trump sets foot on their soil, they are theoretically required to arrest him. Think about that image: a former US president being detained at Heathrow Airport or Charles de Gaulle. It's a geopolitical nightmare, and it's now a very real possibility. Behind closed doors, frantic calls are being made, foreign ministers seeking assurances, diplomats clarifying interpretations, everyone trying to avoid a catastrophic rupture in the Western alliance. The Biden administration's response is a masterpiece of tortured diplomacy, expressing serious concerns about the ICC's reach while respecting the independence of the judicial process. It's a tightrope walk over a canyon. The Trump Organization is now a global pariah. Banks from Zurich to Singapore are conducting emergency reviews. The warrant empowers countries to freeze assets linked to the alleged crimes. A net that could snare everything from a golf course in Scotland to a tower in Istanbul. Business partners are invoking force majeure clauses to exit deals. The corporate empire, already strained by domestic legal challenges, now faces financial siege from every direction. The liquidity required to fight battles on this many fronts is staggering. The warrant may succeed where prosecutors have failed, crippling Trump's financial engine entirely. Inside Mar-a-Lago, paranoia is spreading. The ICC warrant reportedly names several co-conspirators, identities still under seal. Advisors, lawyers, family members are all potentially exposed. Who else is in the crosshairs? The legal strategy is fracturing. Some lawyers want a full frontal assault on the ICC's legitimacy. Others are whispering about the unthinkable, a negotiated settlement. The spectacle of American lawyers arguing before judges in The Hague is now a very real possibility. This warrant places Donald Trump in a very specific category. Sudan's Omar al-Bashir, Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, Russia's Vladimir Putin. These are the other prominent figures targeted by the ICC. Dictators, warlords, war criminals. That association is politically explosive. Trump will rage against it. But in some quarters, he might wear it as a perverse badge of honor proof of his disruptive power. The court knows the U.S. will never surrender him. So why issue the warrant? Because the symbolic power of declaring a former U.S. president an international fugitive is worth the practical impossibility. It's a statement: no one is beyond the reach of international law. The suspense centers on a few critical questions. Will a brave member state attempt to enforce the warrant, triggering a diplomatic catastrophe? Will the ICC release more evidence, audio recordings, financial transfers that solidify the case in public opinion? Could this finally prompt bipartisan action in Washington, reform of the international legal system, or engagement with it? Or will this simply fade into background noise, another unprecedented event normalized in a chaotic age? How does Trump himself react? Historically, legal pressure has galvanized his base and hardened his resolve, but this is different. This is global ostracization, financial valve closure, the humiliation of being grouped with war criminals. Does it break him, Or does it forge him into an even more radical symbol of defiance? His next public appearance will be dissected for clues. This story forces uncomfortable conversations. Critics ask, why Trump, while other powerful actors in ongoing conflicts remain untouched? Why now? Supporters argue the sheer scale of his alleged crimes, weaponizing a global business empire against the international order, demands a response. The warrant challenges sovereign impunity itself. It tests whether the post-World War II international system has any teeth left in the 21st century. For the average person watching at home, this feels unreal. A real estate tycoon turned reality TV star turned president now stands accused by a world court in the Netherlands. The boundaries between domestic politics, international law, and global finance have completely vaporized. It's a plot line too implausible for fiction. Yet here we are, watching history unfold in real time. Every tweet, every court filing, every diplomatic cable could tilt the world toward a new, uncertain order. Financial markets are responding with jittery volatility. The US dollar has dipped as investors assess the implications of a destabilized America. Defense stocks are oddly up on fears of increased global uncertainty. The truth is unsettling. No one knows where this leads. The precedent is now the warrant is issued. The world is holding its breath, waiting to see if the most powerful nation on earth will bow to a court it never recognized, or if it will unleash a storm of retribution that reshapes the international landscape forever. Donald Trump's empire, built on branding and bravado, now faces its ultimate stress test, not from voters, not from domestic prosecutors, from the gavel of a global judiciary. The International Criminal Court has declared a former president of the United States an international fugitive. NATO allies may be legally required to arrest him if he enters their territory. His business empire faces financial siege from every direction, and the shockwaves are only beginning to spread. This is history unfolding in real time. Subscribe now and turn on notifications, because what happens in the next few weeks will determine whether international law has any meaning in the 21st century. You won't want to miss a single development. The warrant is issued. The world is watching, and nothing will ever be the same.